Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. How are you? 1 second.
It's low. It's gonna be bad.
Shalom, shalom. How are you?
Oh, there it is. You can hear me.
Shalom. Hold
How's
on, we're
ev-
coming on.
how's everything? Can you hear me okay?
Shalom. Shalom. We're doing well.
All right, Baruch Hashem, Baruch
How are you
Hashem.
doing?
Yeah, excellent, excellent, excellent. Before we go forward, is there any questions from anything we talked about in the last class about Purim or anything like that? We're still going to have another class, probably probably maybe even tomorrow. We'll talk more about the meal itself and like what could be achieved and the whole basis of it, the whole thing. But any questions on that or anything else before we go forward?
No. So that.
All right, perfect. All right, so we're back. We're back in Rav Ashlag. We're back in the grind, back in the hard work, the sweat, and so we're decoding everything, right? And so he's giving us all the codes because the ultimate goal is to be able to, look at the Zohar and not just the Zohar, but all the texts, right? Because some of the insights that he's saying to us are like humongous things. Like, for example, that everything inside of the text of the Zohar is only there to get you at a particular level so you can go into a higher world that does not have words to explain it, right? So all the metaphors, all the concepts are not explaining to you a totality, right? They're just giving you the aspect of, he says, for substance and form, right? That's what he's teaching us right now, that the Zohar is only dealing with substance and form in terms of the expression. And then he's saying, so it's not dealing with the essence of anything, and it's not dealing with abstract projection. It's just saying what it is and its functionality, right? So then we have to ask ourselves, like, what is the Torah expressing, right? Because we could read the Torah and we could maybe think that when we're reading the Torah that we're also learning the essence, right? That we're learning the essence of the Creator, the totality of the Creator. It's like, no, we're only like, when we're talking about the things that the Creator made on those days, on to say the first several days of creation, right? Well, yeah, on the physical level, you could say he created he created light, he created the sun, the stars, the moons, the waters, everything, right? But what is being said, if we're only dealing with form and if we're only dealing with substance and form of substance, that means that there's a whole nother aspect that's being expressed that's not in that physical text, right? I'm saying if we could learn the Zohar this way, we would have to now ask those same questions: that what is the Torah itself expressing to us, right? Like when the Torah is describing things, what is the Torah describing? Is it telling us the totality of something? When it's using a metaphor, when it's using a humanly attribute, is it really expressing that attribute as we understand it on our level? Or is that attribute just a function to explain something even greater? And the reason why I'm saying that is because when we go into the other text, we could think because that text is talking at a higher level that it's that or is seemingly at a higher level, right? But it's not. It's still connected to that essence, which is the Torah, right? And so as we get a way to analyze the Torah, we could go back, to analyze the Zohar, we can now have critical lenses on the Torah itself. What levels are God speaking to us at? Because there's people who understand the Torah and they learn it from this aspect that they think that the Torah is explaining the essence of things, right? And we can't describe the essence in words, right? And then once they do that, they could start applying like humanly concepts to these frames and then give them life and personalities and maybe even, God forbid, even turning them into deities. Because they think what's being expressed, the essence, is within the text that they're reading. Okay, so with that being said, just hold on. Yeah, so it's a very big point of analyzation. And so that's why when we're learning about all these metaphors and this and what they're connecting to, it's important because there's a real tradition, with this stuff. So we're just reviewing a little bit. We already did chapter 16, Acharei Shena Taver, Lach Hitiv Lanu. So, okay, Dalit. So he says like this. He says, now that you've been thoroughly acquainted with these four modes, right? So we're all experts at it because I keep talking about it. I won't stop talking about it, right? The levels of substance, form, and clothed in substance, and abstract form and essence, right? With regards to the tangible items. It has been explained that we have no grasp of any of these, we have no grasp of any kind of the fourth level, which is the essence, right? So God could not be writing the Torah itself, explaining us the essence of things because we have no ability to grasp it, right? That's the point. And he says, and now this banishes heretical thinking, right? Because people will read the Torah and hear God outstretch His right hand and all these different terms, and they would assume that is explaining God, right? God is physical. Look, it says this, it says that. He even has humanly attributes. So then they could justify saying that God is a man. But if we understand that the essence of anything cannot be explained with words because we don't even understand the essence. So to apply that to the Torah that is so much higher than the Zohar, right? Okay, so he says like this. He says, we have no grasp of the fourth mode, the essence, while the third mode is potentially misleading, right? So he says we don't understand essence, and we don't in the abstract form, we don't know if it's accurate or not. It may be, it may not. He said only the first mode, substance, and the second mode, formed and clothed in substance, have been granted to us with a clear and sufficient perception by the supreme providence. He says only God is given that ability to see. He says, through them, it is also possible to comprehend the existence of the spiritual entities, which are the upper worlds of Asalut, Bria, Yitzira, in Asiya. Since there is not the smallest detail in them that cannot be divided into four modes. Okay. So he's saying that four levels of perception allows a person to now comprehend the four worlds, right? Because the four worlds are in essence, the light is the same. It's only the vessel that affects how that light expresses itself. Ki im techecha leshmila izeh. So it says like this. So he says, for example, if you take a certain detail in the world of Bria, there are vessels there which have red colors. Okay, so the level of Bria, he's saying that there's vessels inside of Bria that would be expressed in a color, as we understand the color red. He says, through which the light of Bria passes through to the inhabitants of Bria, as stated above. The vessel of Bria, which has a color red, is considered a substance or an entity in the first mode. Okay, so we understand the level of Bria, right? So imagine, like, you see these people, like, I don't know, I see them, like, there's a lot of hippies in Israel, right? There's a lot of hippies, there's a lot of backpacking, camping, but the hippies, they have these like sunglasses, right? And they have like, some people got like yellow sunglasses and red sunglasses and pink sunglasses and mixtures. So he's saying that like the level of Bria is the light of Bria refracts in a frame of red, right? So he's trying to explain to us how to analyze this form of substance as it relates to the worlds. So this level of he says Bria being in the frame of red, he said this will be considered the substance or the entity, the first mode. Okay, so we have Bria. So he's saying the substance of Bria. You hear that? You hear how he's doing that? Okay, so he's saying like this. So we won't know what the essence of Bria is, right? We won't know what the essence of Bria is, right? That the Zohar, we don't go into that, right? It's beyond words. You can't put it in words. But he's saying, so Bria itself wouldn't be the substance, but rather the red would be the substance of Bria. Okay? He says, although it is merely a color, which is the notion of the incident and manifestation of the activity in the entity. We have already said we have no perception of the essence itself, but only the manifestation of an activity of the essence. We refer to the manifestation of this entity, or we refer to that manifestation as entity or substance or body or vessel. Okay? So the vessel, the body, the kalim, the substance, all these things are manifestations of the essence. Okay? So that's just a manifestation of the essence. He says, if you don't remember, let's go back to chapter 13. He says, the divine light, which is enclosed and passes through the red, is a form of substance in the entity, the second mode. So he's saying the light, okay, so he's saying like this, substance, a more simpler way to say substance. I'm glad he started the way he did, because it allows us to have a much bigger understanding of it, right? But a most simplistic way to say it like this, substance is the vessel, right? And the form that it's enclosed in is the light, right? But when you see the word vessel, it could be vessel, it could be the body, it could be or it could be substance, or it could be entity. But all these things are the manifestation of essence, right? And he says the divine light is enclosed and passed through the red color is the form enclosed in the entity, i.e. the second mode. This is why the light itself appears red, activated of its enclothing. And illumination via the entity which is considered the body and the substance. So maybe we can understand it this way. And I'm gonna need your help on this one, okay? So what we're trying to understand is like this. So what I want to say, and I want to see if I'm correct, that the light reflects off of the water, and the sky reflects the water, or is it the water reflects the sky? Which one is it?
Well, it has to be that the water reflects the sky.
It has to be the water reflects the sky.
Right. Because because if the sky was like a mirror, then while it's over the earth, while it's over land, it would reflect that. It wouldn't change its composition.
Well, and also when it gets dark too as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, when it gets dark. But it's still, if you look at the ocean, if you look at water, like you look at our pond,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at our pond, at nighttime it's dark.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
it's reflecting the sky.
It's always reflecting the sky.
So is the water blue or is the sky blue?
The sky's blue.
The sky's blue.
Yeah, because if you take now depending on, that'd be a good experiment. I mean, if we go to like parts of the Caribbean, parts of Mexico, the water looks like turquoise blue. So it'd be an interesting thing.
Or some places it's even red. Even I've seen places that the water's red.
Yeah. So But if we take the water, if we take that water and put it in a glass jar and then bring it inside of a house, it could be clear.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? It's so it has to be reflecting, and it
Yeah.
can also
Yeah.
kind of be. It could be reflecting you know, um, what's underneath it.
Yeah.
So water is reflective.
Okay.
Now,
Go ahead, please.
now when I was thinking about this, when I was thinking about Bria and his explanation, I saw kind of like the stained glass window,
Okay.
or even a bulb. If you take like a red light bulb, right?
Nice.
If you crack that
Nice.
red light bulb open, the filament is white. It's like yellowish,
But the bulb,
But when you enclose the bulb in a red bulb or a black bulb, the light is closed. When we see that light reflected in the room, that light is closed. That's not the essence of the light, but that is that is the current substance of the light.
you got it. That's it. That's it. That's that what you just said is the mechanism for all of the worlds. All of the worlds are dealing with a different type of a bulb or say vessel that the light reflects off of in a different way. Right?
I
And
guess
then go ahead.
I guess kind of like blood. Blood. We know that the life is in the blood, the soul is in the blood,
Yep.
but the blood flows throughout the human body, and it gives energy to all the different organs and all the different structures in the body, and
Mm,
yet they have different functions.
mm. So you saying the blood is the substance expressing the essence, which is the soul.
Exactly.
Mm,
Life, which is
mm.
life. So
Yeah.
so now if we were to take that and put it in the Torah, all of the laws, statutes, and commandments, they all have the same purpose. They come from the same source. And so therefore, love thy neighbor as you love yourself is just like you seeing your neighbor's ox go astray, and you take his ox and you bring him into your home and you take care of it. It's just like you not coveting your neighbor's wife. You're not committing adultery. You're not telling a lie. It's all the ultimate goal is that it's all to honor Hashem. It's all to acknowledge Hashem. And so that is our portion of sharing in the world. That we're sharing that light. It comes from the same place. It's the same concept.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right. And the thing is too, on your example, which I really like that example, God willing, I have the pleasure, maybe using it at some point. But the thing is just saying that, in your name. But the thing is just saying like, it's a great concept because it allows us to also understand this idea of the four different levels of desire, right? So the light force that goes inside the rock kingdom is the same light force that goes inside of the human kingdom, but the vessel is reflecting that light differently, right? And the same thing for the plants, right? The plants are reflecting God's light. That's why they're made in that way. That's why they're expressing in that way. Same thing by animals, and same thing by humans. So we're basically seeing the different expressions of God's light, in this world, right? The vessel, right? The vessel itself, which is the entity, in its functionality, right? Which is the light that it receives that makes it, those two things come together, gives it life. So anyway, so let's keep going with this. So it says im amnam tartse aleha fitid praha or okay. So he says if you wish to disassociate the divine light from the entity, right? The red color, right? So you understand that Bina's there and it's reflecting this red light, which means is the form of substance, which is the light, went into this vessel and this red light comes out, right? Okay. And he says, but if you wish to disassociate the divine light from the entity, the red color, and analyze it on its own without enclosing in the entity. This is already part of the third of the third mode, the abstract from the substance, which is subject to error, as stated above. So he's saying that third part, okay, what it is the substance, which is a vessel, and in the form that's enclosed in, which is the light. Now he's saying that this third function of perception, which is abstract form, right? He said allows us to, let's read this again because it's very important, because this is a huge concept. He says analyzed on its own, right? If you wish to disassociate the divine light from the entity, the red color. So the red color, like say you want to look at Bina and say it doesn't, you are not, you have bypassed how it's expressing itself, right? He says, if you disassociate the divine light from the entity, the red light, and analyze it on its own without the enclothing in the entity, all right? And then analyze it on its own without the enclothing of the entity, the light force within it. It has already, you're already in the third mode, which is subject to error. Thus is the subject to error stated above. For this reason, such an approach is strictly forbidden when studying the upper worlds. No true Kabbalist would engage in it, and certainly not certainly not the author of the Zohar. This is even more the case in regards to the essence of the details of Bria, as we have no fundamental grasp even of the essence of the corporeal entities, much less the spiritual ones. Okay, so these are monstrous statements, right? These are monstrous statements. So he's saying this idea, right? So he's saying that. So he basically took the level of Bria to teach us how these four modes, how we should apply them. So let's just go over this very quickly. So he's saying that he said, so you have the level Bria, right? Okay. So the level Bria exists, right? And so the level Bria is, so you could say the concept of Bria is say a point of essence, right? Is a point of essence, is a word describing the essence. What the essence is, we don't know, but it's a word describing the essence. Now the form of that essence is this concept of the color red, right? Is expressing itself in the color red. Now that substance, which is expressing of this essence called Bria, has like like as your husband said, you know, the red bulb, right? The red bulb, right? And so that light, right? The bulb itself, I mean, the light that is inside the bulb is the form of substance. And so when the form of substance is inside of the substance, the light is inside that vessel, right? Then you see this red light, right? Right? So those two aspects, the bulb itself, the vessel, and the light that goes into the vessel is what the Zohar deals with only. The aspect of the essence, right? So you could say the essence itself, right? The essence itself is say the electricity, right? He doesn't deal with electricity, where it goes, where it comes from, how far it goes, what it's made of, and all those things. It doesn't deal with that. It only deals with the light that's coming out of that bulb and the color frame that the bulb is enclosed in, right? And that's it. And so he's saying that this third aspect, which is abstract, which is the ability to, that he himself, Rabbi Shimon, or any Kabbalist would project themselves on those worlds and say, well, the world is like this, and this is how it works, and this is this. He says, because in order to tell us what it is, he would have to understand the essence, right? Since we don't understand the essence, you can't say what anything is, right? You could only accept that it's a vessel that's been given light force by the Creator. And then the Creator gives you rules on how to engage with it, because why? because you don't understand the totality. You don't understand the totality. You're impossible for you to understand the totality of anything. So you need the creator to say, this is how you eat, because you don't understand the totality of the animal that you're eating or how it's prepared and all the effects and all the things. You know how many scientific innovations have happened over the last hundreds of years that they say, wow, that's exactly like the Torah. That's crazy, you know? All types of things. You know, like they talk about people's mental health, waking up in the morning, and how important it is to wake up in the morning and have kavana. They don't say kavana. They say, you know, good mental health, think about positive things, you know, this whole type of stuff. This is part of our normal structure of life that we do these things, right? So the point is saying, so he's saying that point. So the Zohar is not on Rabbi Shimon's intellect and what he saw in the skies. He's literally explaining what is. He's explaining the Masur. The Zohar is explaining the Masur of what is. Bina is holding by like this. Bria is holding by like this, right? Okay. So I think we're clear on that. Okay, so let's keep going. So he says, Hare Sheish Lifeneka. Okay, so he's saying Dalit. So he says, thus there are four modes before you. He says there is a vessel, a Bria, which is the mystical meaning of the red, which is considered the entity or substance, Bria. And he says, and in B, the enclothing of Bria, which is the vessel of Bria, which is the entity, which is the entity form which is the entity form of the entity. And then you have the divine light, and then you have C, the divine light abstracted from the entity, right? That's your projection on it. The divine light abstracted from the entity Bria, that's your projection. And he says, and you have the essence of the individual details, right? Okay, so it's like what it's exactly what we're saying, right? So we're saying, so we have Bria being, you know, this aspect of there's four aspects of Bria, right? There's the essence of Bria. This isn't the order that they're going. I'm building off of that order, right? So so Bria, the way that we understand it in by the teachings of the Zohar, right? Because so that's what I'm saying. So you see now that how people could go into these texts and totally misinterpret it, right? And apply ideas and heretical concepts to the system of thought and learning and experience that this particular sage is writing from, right? And even the Kabbalists themselves, right? He says no Kabbalist would ever write about the speak from the frame of abstract form. How could you project something on the supernal worlds? You can't even do it on the physical worlds, let alone pretend to understand the essence. And so he says, Behine nikaver hayitiv he says gader. So he says like this: the first principle has thus been explained, thoroughly explained. And he says that is not a single word in the entire Zohar refers to the third or fourth mode. It deals solely with the first and second modes, right? So this is a big deal. So again, this is not what he's asking right now, but I'm asking, what are the modalities that the Torah itself is written in? When the Torah is describing things, is it describing it from a frame of abstract form? It couldn't be. Why? Because it was prophecy. So Moses wasn't projecting anything. He was just only dealing with the substance, right? In the form of substance, which was the light inside of the words, inside of the ideas, inside of the halacha. But he said, yeah, this is the way it is. Nobody was doing this, right? Nobody was operating from that place, right? Nobody was operating from that place because that's prophecy. Let's understand prophecy in a deeper way now, right? Prophecy is just giving over what? It's not dealing with his perception. So throw out number 3. And it can't deal with the essence because it's beyond our logic. right? So what's going on when we're hearing a prophecy? What's going on when we're reading the Torah? What parts are we dealing with? And if we understand that we're dealing with the aspect of form, of substance and form of substance in the Torah itself, then we can understand how the sages were able to extrapolate wisdom that became halakha, that became midrashim, that became commentaries, that became the study of sod, right? Because they were going into the structure of the substance in its form. They were understanding the light. That's what the Kabbalah is dealing with. The substance is dealing with the stories, the grammaticals, the dynamic, right? The text, right? But it's not dealing with our projection. So when we're learning, we're not learning and we're not analyzing ourselves. That's what you see in the Christian church. They're dealing with the Bible from abstract form. They're projecting their thing on it. They're not passing on a tradition of what these things mean. So we have an all-conclusive system of interconnectedness. They're not dealing with that. They're saying, hey, I woke up today, I read this, this is what I feel about it. Maybe he's right, maybe he's not, I don't know. But I'm just saying this is the point we have to be aware of in terms of having a tradition of learning the Torah versus using Western academia as a basis, right? So it says V'chad im ze mayite ba'ar gader av. So he says like ve'yada. So he says the second principle becomes clear with the above mentioned. Understand that as we explain, the four modes in single detail within the world of Bria alone are in general typically the same in the four worlds of Absolute, Bria, and Yetzirah, Asira. The three colors, red, green, and black, right? So now we got the colors, right? Colors. Sorry, right? So we have the world of Absolute is drum roll. Wait. So we just learned that Bria is red, right? So Bria is red, so that means green would have to be Absolute, and Yitzira would have to wait. They're going to explain it to us. All right. So the three colors, red, green, and black, in the worlds. In the worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. Okay, nice. Okay. So Bria is red, Asiya is green. Sorry. Bria is red, Yitzira is green, and Asiya is black. We talked about this, remember? She says they are considered the substance or the entity, right? He says the white hue, which expresses the world of Asiya, absolute, is the form enclosed in the substance. So the light comes from absolute, right? That's why they're saying the color is white. He says, thus is called hues, calls Bria and Yitzira. So this light of the absolute goes into Bria, goes into Yitzira, and goes in Asiya, right? Just like surf going down the pancakes, right? He says the Ein Sof is considered in isolation. He says is the mystical meaning of essence. So the Ein Sof is in the frame of essence. So now he's expanding the language. You see how he's doing that? So he's saying, so now when we talk about the world of Bria, Asiya, Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, right? So he says those are the colors, red, green, and black, right? So that world those worlds are all vessels, right? So the light is in the world of absolute. So the light of world of absolute is a white light. But that light goes into all the other vessels, and then that's where the red manifests, and that's where the green manifests, and this is where this black manifests, right? All right. And so he's saying that in the same way that the world of absolute is where the light comes from, absolute is also understood in the same way as you understand the Ein Sof. So when you hear the Ein Sof, you got to connect it to the absolute. And the absolute and the Ein Sof are in the frame of what? The essence, right? So it's the opposite now, right? So the absolute, which is on top where the light comes from, right, is connected to the endless world, right? The Ein Sof. And the Ein Sof and absolute are connected into the essence. When the essence we understand, right? He says this is what we say with regard to the first principle. What we have no grasp of the essence, which is the fourth mode that is hidden from all entities, even the entities of this world, stated above in chapter 12. Review it. The white hue itself, when it is not enclosed in the three lights, the red, the green, and the black, it is, he says that is the light of Hokmah. When it is not enclosed in Bina, Tiferet. All right, so this understand what he's saying, because they're expanding language. He's connecting. He's like Pac-Man, right? He's just gobbling more and more things around these concepts. Okay, so let's do this. He says the light. He says the white light hue. The white hue. It's by itself, when it's not enclosed in the three worlds of Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. That is the light of Hokmah, which is connected to Bria, right? The light of wait. The Hokmah, he says the light of Hokmah when it's not enclosed in Bria, Tiferet and Malchut, right, is form stripped of essence, with which we have no dealings. All right, so let's try to understand what's going on. Okay, so I think I'm pretty clear on this, right? So he's saying like this: when the light of Absolute, when the word of Absolute is not being revealed in Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, considered as the substances, right? Right? So this is what he's saying. He says, okay, when the light itself, when the light by itself, when it is not enclosed in the three hues, the Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, that is the light of Chokmah, then it is not enclosed in Bria. Then it is not enclosed in Bria, Tiferet, and Malchut, which is the form of substance with which we have no dealings. The Zohar says nothing about this mode, only the first mode, which is the three levels of Bria, Yitzira, and Asya, considered the substance. These are the three Sfirot, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut. Likewise, speak of the second mode, which is the illumination of Absolute, enclosed in the three levels of Bria, Yitzira, and Asya. The light of Chokmah enclosed in Bria, the light of Chokmah enclosed in Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, which parallel the forms which is enclosed in the substance. So, so before we go further now, so he's saying, so basically, as we've learned before, that when we understand the world of Bina, we understand we're dealing with the world of Chokmah. When we're dealing with the world of Yitzira, we're dealing with the world of Tiferet. When we're dealing with the world of Asiya, we're dealing with the world of Malchut, which we also know that the world of Bria is connected to the color red. The world of Yitzira is connected to the color green, and Malchut is connected to the level black, right? So he's saying when the light of Absolute is not being manifest in that way, the Zohar doesn't deal with the light. You understand? Like, it doesn't deal with absolute on its own frame. It only deals with absolute in a frame that's manifest in these vessels, these three vessels, which are connected to these aspects of 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 that. And people say, well, what do you mean, like all the levels of light, all the 10 sphirot, right? So the 10 sphirot of light, we only deal with the light when it's manifest in these vessels. So we're saying that even though we're understanding that the light is being manifest through these vessels, That is not the totality of the light. Okay? So the light force of the creator is way beyond, way more expansive than what we are talking about. We're only dealing with it in the framework that God has revealed to us as Israel to be able to understand and conceptualize our interaction with him in its limited reality. But don't think because we're saying that these worlds are this and that and these different worlds of Yitzhak and this and the worlds that we are understanding the totality of God. Absolutely not. We will be kidding ourselves and lying to ourselves, right? And when you learn from other people, listen to these words. Listen to how they speak. Are they just giving over the tradition, or are they trying to project their spin onto it and their ideas onto it? That is abstract form. That is not the path of wisdom. That's not the path of wisdom. Even when you go to different rabbis and you ask for advice, they're going to go and look into the Torah and ask, studies this whole thing, or bring points to the Torah. They're not using their own logic, right? So what he's saying here, he's saying because these things are, he's only dealing with the light as it relates to these vessels, as it relates to our conceptualization. But don't think that you're understanding the totality of the light. He says the book of the Zohar deals with these two modes in all places. Consequently, if the reader is not careful to focus his thoughts and understand in order to comprehend the words of the Zohar in all the places as saying only within the principle of these two modes, the entire matter will immediately become confusing to him and he will completely misunderstand the meaning of these ideas. Right? So I wanted to stop here for a second and just kind of like talk it out. So what are some thoughts, reflections so far where we're at?
Well, I wanted to kind of just talk about just the whole aspect of absolute,
Yep.
and just from the white,
Yep.
the hue, the color of white, and I can appreciate that he used the terminology hues of the three worlds of Bria, Yet, Asia, and Yetzar. Yetzar. Yeah, Bria, Yetzar, and Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So from that aspect, we only can identify what has already been what has been revealed to us. You see, that's kind of how I see that. Meaning, listen, I don't. It's not given to me. I don't have the responsibility to try to figure out the white light.
Yep.
That's not that's beyond what I can. That's beyond what I can even comprehend within my lifetime or the next. You see, so in regards to that, in this stage of the of time, kind of going back to when things, like starting from the embryo stage, and from the Ansaf, and then it's reflected down, and now it grows like a body. We're only using a body in a way of to reference what we're
Yep.
talking about.
Exactly.
At the stage that we're in right now, we're in the stage that we cannot afford to deal in the abstract and start projecting our own intellect. Why? Because the road has already been paved out. The road has already been paved out, and so all we're to do is to look back and see the light through the hues that have been manifested to us, for us to understand and for us to have that direction. So when I see the red light, like for example, when I if you have three individuals and they walk into a room and there's a red light on, okay? Well, if we go in the room and say, hey, there's a red light on in the room, okay? That's it. There's a red light. But then another person comes in, they says, "Oh, hey, is this the red light district?" Oh, you see how you projecting? And then another guy walks in and say, "Hey, is this good for bugs? Does this help us to, like, when we walk outside from going from a lit room to a dark room? You know, does that help our pupils to regulate? Because that's what red lights outside is for." So it's about the fact that, hey, listen, man, there's a red light in the room, and and we need to start there. And then, instead of us projecting what we think we see, and that kind of goes along with, a lot of times, and I like when you say, when you give us the frame of thought, you say, are there any reflections, any thoughts? Because what that allows us to do is that allows us to examine ourselves and say, okay, am I projecting this, or am I following the structure? Because what's typically asked many times in many meetings, that, hey, so what does this verse mean to you? What does this verse, like, what is it speaking to you? What's in your heart? And that can be deceptive. That can be deceptive. But rather, let me go back and see what has been described and what was the intentions of the red light. What was the intentions of the green light? What is the intentions that the sages and that the elders have? What did they say about this verse? What did they say about this concept? So that I'm not far off in my thinking. What does it mean to come out of her, my people? Like, what did the sages think about that? Does that line up with what we think about it? These are all like frames of references of how to, this is training. So in other words, it's almost like the Zohar is teaching us how to think about the scriptures.
Exactly. That was the point. that was the point of that was great, first of all. And the beauty of, like, when wisdom is coming down, it's not just with the words, but it's the energy. And sometimes the energy will inspire you to think it, and like just hearing your words allow me to understand it in a whole new way. How? So if we were to explain this system to some guy, like, a guy who knows a basic level of Bible, right? We want to explain these 4 levels to him. We'll say like this: God describing of Adam, right? So Adam, right, was laid out, right? That would be the substance. And then God blew a ruach inside of Adam. Then he became a living being. That's the form of substance. When Adam and Chava ate from the tree, they noticed each other and they saw they became naked and became ashamed. That's abstract form. That's when they were projecting, they were able to see and project. When we read about in the beginning, God bringing Adam and placing him in the garden, it doesn't talk about where Adam came from, right? It just talks about like him placing him in the garden, right? That will be the aspect of essence, how we don't even know the essence, right? So those 4 levels could be understood through form, which is the body of Adam, the substance, which is the light force, the ruach that God blew into Adam. That will be form of substance, enclosed inside the substance. And them noticing each other was the beginning of the abstract form, right? And the essence of where Adam comes from, we don't know. The Torah doesn't even speak about it, right? The Torah just talks about the dynamic of placing Adam there. So the essence of Adam, we don't even deal with. So that would be a simplistic, I think, way to kind of explain that principle. And I think the essence of 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 Adam not being known, right? In us, like the abstract form is the idea of living outside of God's way, right? Because the only way that Adam understood the totality of the Garden of Eden was by following God's way. Now, he didn't understand everything. He didn't understand why not to eat from the Eitz Hadas. He didn't understand it. But nevertheless, God was already protecting him. God says, no, you're going to have this complete. And he, through his free will, defied that. And when he defied that, he brought in this other level of perception, right? Which is the abstract form where he even objectified his own wife, which is his opposite. And even his children objectified themselves. Cain and Hevel, right? They projected onto each other, right? Oh, well, you have more than I do. God received your offering, he didn't receive mine, right? Which eventually led to the concept of them taking each other out. So the Torah in the beginning is teaching us about the levels of perception through the dynamic of the evolution of Adam, right? And this type of thing. So just go a little bit more into it. Go ahead. You got something now?
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you this question here, okay? Because this, we were talking about this months when we were actually on the first parasha, just dealing with Adam. And as we were looking at it, we were looking at the fact that Hashem brought the animals to Adam to see what he would call them, right?
Now you got it.
And from that framework, when we looked at, like, when you go into the clean and unclean animals that we see in the Hebrew, many of those animals, especially the fowl, many of those animals, in particular the fowl, it's the Hebrew words actually represent like an action. They're like verbs. They're like from something that can be observed. You see what I'm saying?
Like the color red.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because see, it's like, how do you describe the color red in action though? Well, like, how do you?
Well,
like,
I'm saying the red itself is an expression of that light going into that vessel. Right, we're saying we could say red as just a color, but it's actually in a frame of an action in that dynamic, because it's a manifestation of it's like hitting the drumstick to the drum, right?
Okay.
Because of that sound comes out. So is that sound? Okay. So is that sound an action?
Okay, so what you're saying is that even when we think about red in of itself, it's still us projecting an image of red color.
Exactly.
Does it have something to do, like, so everything is like still going back to like dealing with our five senses in this level of the substance and the form of substance?
Okay, so
I'm just kind of thinking about it, because I can see red. I can see red.
Okay, so I wasn't thinking about the five senses. So so what you're saying is, and Toda for that, because so what does red sound like? What does red taste like? How does red feel? Is that what we're talking about? Because if we can't see with our eyes, how would we determine that something is red?
Well, what I'm saying in this regard is like this. So I'm saying that he's saying red, right? He says the example he used was Bina, right?
Yeah.
So the way Bina is expressing itself is, or the way that the form of Bina, which is Bina is the essence, right? The expression of Bina is red. Now, how does the expression of Bina happen? When the light and the vessel come together. When that light goes into Bina, right, goes into that vessel, is express, or put it this way, the essence is expressing this form called Bina. When the light enters this form called Bina, the expression of red is a manifestation of that. So what? So like this, like what you're saying by the animals, right? When Adam is naming the animals, all he's doing is he's identifying the combination of the substance and the light of that goes in that substance. That's You hear what I'm saying?
Yes. So,
The supernal light.
the supernal light. Yeah. So would that be the supernal light?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Absolute.
So in other words, what we're talking about is that when the supernal light makes contact with the vessel,
There you go.
the expression or how that vessel begins to operate when there's a contact.
Exactly. Is rock,
That is
is
that is the
vegetable,
substance.
is animal, is
Mm.
human. That expression of that light in that vessel.
So when I see a rock, that rock has the light in it, but that is how it is. It's that's how it's when I
It's
see it, this is the expression of that light.
exactly.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
All right. All right. All right. So we're going to keep going a little bit further. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, but that's the framework of everything around us is a series of vessels that the light is there. And even within that, we don't know the essence. That's why this principle is so huge. We have to keep going over it. It says, "Ve'hav shevahem somek mahaz Zohar." So it says like this. He says the four modes are explained with regards to the generality of absolute, bria, and absolute. The same applies to each and every world, even a small detail in the same world from the beginning of the world of absolute into the end of the world of Asiya. For as stated, every detail contains chokmah, detail. He's saying like this. He said the four modes are explained in generality, right? The general basis of Asul, the general basis of Bria, the general basis of Yitzir, the general basis of Asya, right? He said that, but the same system, the form in the substance in form of substance, that also applies to each and every world, even the smallest details of the world, right? So he says, from the beginning of the worlds of Absolute, and this goes for all of them, all the way to the highest world of Absolute, all of them are all connected in this. And he says, as we know, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet are also connected to these worlds, right? And he says, thus the sphere of Chokmah is considered a form, while Bina, he says, while Bina and Tiferet and Malchut are regarded as substance. Okay, so let's try to understand what he's saying. Now he's trying to understand us how to compare and understand the idea of the other spherot, right? Because we know the colors. So how do we understand the spherots, right? So he's explaining that aspect. He says, as stated, Chokmah, Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut. Okay, thus the sphere of Chokmah is considered a form. Okay, it's considered a form. While Bina and Tiferet and Malchut are regarded as substance, in which the form is enclosed. Okay, so all right, that makes sense though. Okay, so Chokmah is connected to the frame of Absolute, right? Absolute is pure light. So they're making that distinction of this pure dynamic of light that's unfiltered, that doesn't have a vessel per se, or the vessel it doesn't alter it. It's not part of this hue, right? That are part of these other components, right? But it's there. So he's saying Chokmah, he says is considered form, right? Which is the light, right? And but Bina, and he says, but he says, while the form Bina and Tiferet and Malchut, which are connected to Bria, Yitzira, and Aslu. You see the difference? Absolute pure light, right? It's the light, it's the form. It's the light that goes into being a bria, right? It's the light that goes into Yitzhak. It's the light that goes into that. So he says, in the same way that the light of Absolute is in the frame of. He says the light of Absolute is always in the frame of Chokmah, So Chokmah has to be revealed in one of the levels. That's what he's saying, right? So if we understand Absolute and Chokmah is the same, that Chokmah itself doesn't stand on its own, but we only understand Chokmah as it relates to, as it's revealed in the other worlds. So Chokmah is operating in the same frame as Absolute. So when you read Chokmah in the Zohar, whatever, it's speaking in the frame of Absolute, meaning it is a light force that can only be manifest inside of a vessel. And we don't deal with Chokmah outside of the frame of the vessels in which it manifests in the same way we don't Absolute, right? Okay. So okay, okay. So he says four states. Let's go back. Okay, so he says Sabria. So he says Bina, Tefer, Malchut are regarded as substance in which the form is enclosed. The light of Absolute, the light of Chokmah. So Chokmah in Bina, Chokmah in Tiferet, Chokmah. You know what I'm saying? All right. So okay. So okay. So. And these are the first and second modes, which are the subject of the Zohar, right? However, the Zohar does not deal with the sphera of Chokmah when it is divested from Bina. This is what I just said. That's what I just said. That's what I just said. All right. So anyway, so he says when it is divested from Bina to Fer Malchut. So when it just like Absolute, when it's not in those vessels, the Zohar doesn't deal with it. He says it is a form without a substance, and all the more so, it does not speak of the essence, which is the aspect of the Ein Sof. Blessed be He in the details. Accordingly, we engage with Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut that are in all the details, even in Absolute. As stated, where we do not engage with Keter and Chokmah of all the details. Okay, so let's go back to what's being said. All right. Okay, so even in Absolute, this system of Chokmah, Bina, and Tiferet, and Malchut, right? They exist in all the worlds, right? We know that. So it exists in Absolute, it exists in Bria. So he's making a point, and he's saying that he says, okay, so let's go back over it. So he says, however, the Zohar does not deal with the sphere of Chokmah, right? As it's divested, when it is divested from Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut, as it is a form without a substance. And all the more so, it does not speak of the essence, which is the aspect of the Ein Sof. Okay? It's also not dealing with the essence of Bina, of Malchut in the sense. It's only dealing with as it relates to the substance of Bria, Yitzira, and Asi. Is part of that substance of it, right? And that substance is there to receive that light, right? So it's another aspect, it's another detail of the substance, right? Okay, so he says accordingly, we engage with Bina and Tiferet and Malchut that are all in all the details, even in Absolute, right? So even those details that are in Absolute of that structure, but that structure of Absolute only manifests itself when it's in the other three levels, right? Okay, so he says, as stated, where we do not engage with Keter, right? Because we know there's a level higher than Chokmah. You have Keter, Chokmah, Bina, but we don't engage with Keter, right? Because it's like in that higher level, it's in that higher place, right? And he says we do not engage with Keter and Chokmah of the details, even in Malchut. Oh, okay, interesting. He says even when the Chokmah and Keter fully manifest, we don't deal with them in their details. We acknowledge them on a general basis, but we don't go into the details of Chokmah or Keter in the same way we do the other vessels, right? Of the other vessels of substance, right? Not form of substance. So we don't go into that. So he says even Malchut at the end of Asiya. He says in the end them. He says in in and of themselves when they have been abstracted, but only to the extent that they are enclosed in Bina, Tiferet, and Malchut. Thus, the first two principles have been thoroughly explained. The whole focus of the author of the Zohar is only the substance or the form in which the substance, which is the light, right? And he says, which is the first principle, and likewise, they focus on Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya, or the illumination of Absolute in Bria, Yitzira, Asiya, which is the second principle. All right, so where are we holding at? What are your thoughts?
Okay. All right. So
You
worlds
got
are colliding.
you
That's what
got it. You got it. You got it.
worlds are colliding. All right. So this made me think about. I wrote a couple of notes here as you were going. Um, it made me think about Mordecai and Esther
Mm,
because, like we said, in the book of Esther, like I said, the name of Hashem is not even mentioned, right?
yeah.
So it's like we can't understand, we can't see him, we can't. It seems like there's no interaction. But let's do this little drill here. I kind of went through this little mental drill and said, okay, let me look at Mordecai, let me look at Esther, let me look at him, okay, Hadassah, and from me looking at it, dealing with from an abstract projection, I see that both of them are in captivity. I see both of them in a very, serious situation. Even Esther, some would look at it from the outside and say, "Oh man, that's excellent. She's a queen. She's, man, she's a king of a major empire, right? But she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to. That her reality is that she doesn't even want to be with this man, right? Um, and these are problems. These are situations, right? And it looks like they have no voice. It looks like they're in a situation where they're in this massive empire. But yet, here's our salute. Here's the unsolved. And there's a situation brewing. And, the sages taught that the reason that Vashti didn't go to the king was because she was made to be a leper. Okay? So now there's something going on here. There's a setup. And so now Esther is in position. She doesn't want to be there, but she's in position. And here's Mordecai. And what they do is, here are two righteous individuals, but yet they're in captivity, and yet their situation is dire. Their situation is bad, right? But here's Mordecai, and he knows what to do to bring down that light, and he knows what's going on, and Esther knows how to bring down this light. And so when our salute hits Mordecai, and when our salute hits Esther, the reaction and response is deliverance. So a couple of days ago, you were talking about, you asked the question, you and Otanel,
Mm.
why do we have to go, like, why were we created to go through all of this? Why is it that we were created to go through all of this? And honestly, the answer to that could possibly be that the Ansaf, that Hashem orchestrated all of these things for us to be in position to be at this place right now, at this time, so that we would be appropriate vessels to express what he's doing now. You see? And so that the corrections can be made possible.
Mm.
The days that we're born, like me and my wife, we're born a day apart in the same year. you know? And to us, that has always been something that we've always, looked at. But you don't know why these things were happening. And so when when you look at our situation, because we think about it all the time. We like, wow, what's the point of us being a part of a people that are considered to be a no people in the whole earth? There's nobody in the whole earth that has that testimony, that their history has been basically stripped from them, their whole history. And so the question is why? And and I think about how Hashem says that you will go to a no people because you wanted to follow after no God. And if we are no people and we're connected to a no people, we have to become a no people in order for us to be cleansed and purified, in order to refocus that light, to refocus that light in a place of purity where we can't be corrupted and distracted. Because that's what happened to Mordecai and Esther. They had a time of purification, and that was a time for that light to shine upon them.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and one of the points you bring out that really should be reflected upon is, now that we really are getting a grasp of these four principles, right, and really like seeing them as functionalities in life, not just something to analyze a text from, but these are tools to see life, and the Torah is a tool to see life, right? But now we could really look at the different Sfarim, the different books, and asking where are they compelling us at, in what areas. Like you just brought out the scroll of Esther, the book of Esther. And now you can look at it as like, well, the whole essence is explicitly not said, right? Because maybe a person could be reading the Torah and read the name Hashem, read the name Elohim, read the name, different names in the Torah, and then they think that they're connecting to the essence, right? They think that that's the totality. They think that that's the element, and so they develop an ego and a sense of grasp and entitlement around it, versus a humility, which is like, wait, this is beyond, my reasoning. This is beyond my logic, right? So when we see the book of Esther, it doesn't even say the name of God, and we're like, oh well, God is concealed. Yeah, but even God is concealed even in the Torah itself, because the essence and the greatness of God cannot even be put into words, right? So that's the humility of the greatness of what we're connecting to. It's like, no, it's like even that in itself is mind-blowing, right? But even that is not even the full level, right? It's like, so now that we could go outside and look at nature and be like, wait, that is a vessel, that is an essence that's being expressed in this concept of tree, right? This is a vessel, right? That's being, this tree has an essence. I have no idea what the essence of this tree is. It's beyond my logic. It's a whole 99. When I'm planting seeds, those seeds are not the totality of that tree. That's just an expression of the totality that I can grasp. Like your wife brought out the whole concept of the five senses. This is what makes the whole thing works, right? Because the five senses is accepting that we're only seeing 1% of reality, right? So it's not just that we can't see the essence because the essence is so deep. We can't see Baklal, right? We can't see. Science is showing that, right? And so when we make decisions about love and romance, especially like, people that get older, they want to, have relationships and marriage and these types of things. Well, if I look at the way that the television says, maybe that route is not a path to true love. Maybe it's just a evil lust that's going to disrupt that whole experience that I could have with another person, that I'm going to have to work to get away from, to reprogram myself and take myself away from what I already have now. So if I follow the way of God, right, because I can't see the essence of that man and his intentions. I can't see the essence of that woman or intentions. So what can I do to protect myself? Follow God's path. Because I can't see. I don't know. And anybody who says that they know is not being honest with you. They're just not being honest with you because nobody knows. Nobody knows the essence. You can't give people advice. You could tell them what the Torah says, right? This is what the Torah says. I don't know. I mean, I could. This guy comes up to me and tell me this horrible story, about this situation. He comes up to me on Shabbat and he's telling me this whole story about him and his ex and the child, and the ex fled the country, and he's like had to go and see the daughter, and this. It's a whole bad situation. And I just said, bro, let me give you a hug. All I could do is hug the guy. You know what I mean? It's like it's nothing else I could do. You know what I mean? It's just like, what do you want? I can give you stories and halacha. I can give you sometimes people just need a hug. You know what I mean? So the point is just saying is because the essence of the problem. I mean, who am I to pretend that I know? That I have some insight. No, okay, I read this story. It's like this, this thing. But bottom line is, I feel your pain. You're not alone. You know what I mean? And so that's the main thing, because I've been through difficult situations, and I know like how isolated you could feel in those type of moments, So through that empathy, I could connect. But in terms of like, saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, I mean, you could connect to the hurt. Anyway, so the point is just saying that we want to apply this, and we want to start looking at text. We want to start looking at statements. We want to start looking at characters and say, where did they go wrong? Right? Maybe they were in this frame of abstract form, right? Where they were projecting and they were using their five senses to come up with realities that are not there. Even business. Like people think shortcuts in business. Okay, you did a shortcut. You think God didn't see you. Okay, so what? God's too heavy for you. You're right. Because God is just a word, right? Okay, the system that we're functioning in, right? That system of cause and effect, right? That reality that we live in, okay, if you take, it's going to take. If you give, it's going to give. I mean, you can say, oh, well, I could take and not receive repercussions, but yeah, you will. So, anyways, so the point is just saying, so yeah, so we want to evolve these tools and involve them into our lives in general, and be able to kind of like see the world in this way, and to see God in everything. See God in the vessel, even the walls around us. Like, okay, are the walls alive? Yeah, but I'm saying the materials themselves, they have to come together somehow, right? They have to come together, right? So the walls are alive. The chairs have a sense of life. The everything has a process. It doesn't say just living wood in general. You know what I mean? So everything has a lifespan. Everything is alive, and we need to treat it as such, right? That everything has a significance, and the more we see that, the more we can value ourselves, right? And all the details of ourselves, and cleanliness and hygiene, and exercise and rest and eating the right foods, and all these things that express like our appreciation for something that God has created, right? So, any last ideas before we finish it off?
No.
Toda.
Toda. Oh
Okay,
wait,
good. So,
I tell you
yeah,
what.
go ahead.
Congratulations on your going to your third year.
Yeah, you saw that. Yeah, you saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we're on the move, man. We're on the move. I just had a meeting today with a pretty large consulting company, about just setting up all the infrastructure in America, for the nonprofit and everything just being done at the highest level. So a lot of things are coming along, and the people that are coming into the conversation, are the right people. And that's the main thing, because, in this type of situation, you're opening gates. All the people you bring in, even the students, everything is like very particular, you know what I mean? Because you're building a foundation. And so you want every aspect of the building to be pure. You know what I mean? You want the whole foundation. So the people that you bring in, the monies that you accept, all these different types of things are extremely important. And that's the beauty, with Chief Rabbi Pinchas, because him and his wife, they had some donors, but they funded most of it themselves. They funded the yeshiva, everything, because he didn't want to accept money from anybody else, because he felt accepting money compromises the integrity of our freedom and our message. And he's saying, so he says, generate, we got to publish books, we got to even sell merchandise if we can, whatever the thing is, have certain students that support, because we don't want a situation where other people give us money and then now we have to lose our integrity of focusing, in our communities in a way that we want to do it. So anyways, so we keep pushing on, and we have the freedom. And so because of the freedom that Chief Rabbi Pinchas and his family, brought down, that created a platform where, thousands of people in Africa, but specifically, a lot of rabbis, throughout the entire region could come together and talk things out. And part of one of those things was my election as a chief rabbi African American community, which is like a huge responsibility. We have a chief rabbi African American community also, which is Rabbi Fournier, Casper Fournier in Chicago, but he's a conservative rabbi. So I'm more so coming from the Orthodox side, I think, but I still look up to him. He's an elder and he has a lot of wisdom, and we did a great interview together. I don't know if you saw it, but we did a whole thing together. We went through the history. So, I see myself as a part of the lineage. I come from the yeshivish community, here in Jerusalem. That's where I was developed, but I also see myself as part of the long lineage of African-American rabbis that have existed in America, many of which were not necessarily accepted by mainstream Jewish world. But nevertheless, I'm still an extension of them in their Torah and their tefillah too, like Rabbi Matthews, Rabbi Levi, Rabbi Ford, the commandment keepers, all the people, even up into present day, they may have different practices and different things, but they were teachers in our community, right? And they held the title of rabbi by their community. So anyway, I see myself in the same avoda as that. So we should, continue to go higher. God should continue to protect us and continue to allow ourselves to purify ourselves and just stay on the right course and stay away from ego and vanity and all these other things that have destroyed a lot of leaders in the past. And that's why we want to stay inside the Torah with these tools, which I have a feeling they didn't have. Baruch atah Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen.